Hi, I'm Neil, the founder of DeepDocs, a GitHub AI agent that keeps the documentation file up to date with the changing code base. To install DeepDocs, you can go to GitHub Marketplace and then you can install it in any of your repositories. Now, I have already installed DeepDocs on my private repository called SpyroLibNew. I'm currently on the feature/demo branch, and this repository contains a documentation folder called docs, as you would typically see in many repositories. And this documentation folder contains several Python scripts, which are example scripts, as well as a couple of high-level documentation files in the form of markdown files. Next, I will show you how you can configure DeepDocs, and this can be done by placing a deepdocs.yaml file at the root of this repository, and this deepdocs.yaml can be used to specify which documentation files or folder the DeepDocs should track to update the documentation. And in this case, I have already specified that DeepDocs should track my docs folder. Alright, we can now go ahead and make a change in our source code repository to trigger DeepDocs. So let me go to one of my modules and commit these changes. As soon as we commit, DeepDocs would be triggered. It would start analyzing the code base as well as the code diffs, and it would identify all the relevant documentation that may be affected by this particular change. So let's give it a few seconds and see what DeepDocs comes up with. Alright, DeepDocs has already analyzed the documentation files and made the updates, and we can check this by clicking the commits over here. This was the latest commit that we made onto one of our source code files, and we can see there's a comment here, and this comment was made by DeepDocs. So this was the change that we just made by introducing this arbitrary scale factor into our class. And below is the report by DeepDocs. So what DeepDocs says is that two docs files have been outdated by this commit 235. This is the same commit which we just made, 235. So two docs have been outdated by this commit, and these two docs which have been outdated are critically outdated and needs immediate attention. And we can take a look what the reasons are. So the documentation files that were affected was the markdown file, one markdown file and one Python script. And DeepDocs has also given you a reason why these documentation files have been critically outdated, and it has also included the references based on which this documentation was determined to be outdated. Next, DeepDocs has also provided a commit where it has actually updated this documentation. So not only it has identified the outdated documentation, but it has also updated the documentation in a separate branch called deepdocs-update called 235. This is the same commit which we just made for the source code file. We can take a look what has happened in this new commit which contains the outdated documentation. As you can see in this Python script, DeepDocs has now introduced the scale parameter over here, as you can see here, and secondly it has also added a scale parameter in one of the markdown files. That's it. That is how you can use DeepDocs to keep your documentation continuously updated with your changing code base.